Good
This
morning.
conference will now be recorded.
I guess good afternoon is in order. This is Gonzalo Garcia at Agency One, and I want to thank everybody for being on the call. Today, we're going to talk about staying busy, serving clients in this time of anxiety and need, and continuing to be able to generate revenue and opportunities as you all are all home or wherever you may be to taking care of your businesses. I have the pleasure of two advisors that are on the phone that are here on the webinar with me. Kim Nadovitz out of Bethesda, Maryland, with TriBridge Partners, and David Appel in Boston from Appel Advisors. And I specifically wanted to have them on this call because, you know, over the last few weeks, I know for a fact, because I talk to them daily, probably multiple times, they are extremely busy and they're generating a tremendous amount of activity and business that will ultimately result in revenue for their businesses. I know, and I've heard from many, many more people that, you know, it's hard. It's hard to stay active. It's hard to stay engaged. And it's hard to be able to get out there in front of your clients. So, you know, with that in mind, we thought that we would ask them to share what are they doing in their practices to really continue to generate the opportunities that they're generating. So just before we get started, by way of introduction, Kim, can you just spend a brief minute and introduce your practice and what you guys do at TriBridge?
Sure. TriBridge is a insurance firm. We have an employee benefits practice, a retirement plan practice, and then I'm part of the individual solutions practice. And my practice predominantly life insurance, estate planning, disability insurance, long-term care planning, and that's a little bit about me.
David, same question for you. Just a little bit of intro.
So similar to Kim, my practice is always focused on what I've trademarked: people insurance, life, health, disability, long-term care, either corporately or individually. Don't deal with investments at this point. I deal with a lot of RIA firms that I refer my business out to at this point. So I did not have to deal, you know, in the last few weeks with fielding phone calls regarding market performance or retirement assets or other assets. So my firm is strictly focused on the insurance side, on the risk protection side, and I would say 85% of my business comes from outside centers of influence.
And Kim, that's not that different for your firm, right? You do a lot of work with centers of influence.
Same. I'm also not investment licensed, and most of my clients come from word of mouth from other clients and introductions from collaborating with other advisors. Very much the same as David's.
Great, thank you, Kim. You know, look, when this thing happened a few weeks back, and we started to get forced shutdowns and all and everything, you know, I think that everybody on the line here realized that, you know, business as usual, which is not the way that things were going to go in the future. And, you know, we're in a social business. We're in a business where we deal with people, and we have social interactions with them on a regular basis in our professional lives. So I'm just curious, kind of, you know, Kim, I'll start with you. What was your immediate reaction when you realized, you know, there's a total shutdown going on? I can't get in front of people.
Well, for me, I really wasn't that concerned about I couldn't get in front of people, because as long as I have internet access, quite frankly, and my phone works, then I can still connect with people. You know, we had really many, many years ago started doing much more by phone and scheduled conference call than, you know, face-to-face meetings. And what I realized is that, and also we had really, you know, in working with Agency One, we had embraced a lot of the technology with regard to being paperless. So I wasn't as concerned about, you know, how I was going to continue to work with people, and just really started a very aggressive outreach.
Right. David, in you know, in the impact of social distancing, how has it changed the way you're approaching your business?
Well, it's changed a lot, because my focus has always kind of been to be out there. As Ben Feldman told me when I was 22 years old and I was 6 months in the business, he just leaned over and said, son, You need to just see the people. You just need to see the people. And obviously in today's day and age, seeing the people was not an option. So as all my speaking engagements got canceled, as all the networking events got canceled one after another, I realized that I have to figure out some ways to stay relevant, to stay present, because I'm sure, like all of you, when you attend events, whether they're networking events or, like for me, like I do a lot with the Boston Estate Planning Council. Just by seeing people and getting in front of them, it's amazing how they always have a case for you, or they just, oh, I have someone that came in and needed life insurance or whatever it may be. But if you're not out there at these events, you're not at the top of mind.
Right, and that has really forced both of you, Kim, much less so for you because you were kind of already doing it, but David, for you in particular, you've become a Zoom expert. You figured out how to use MailChimp, or how to scan things with your phone, or how to use e-signatures and all those things. So kind of what technology are each of you kind of deploying in your practices, and what's really working well for you from a tech standpoint? David, start with you.
Well, I mean, one thing that I didn't address in your last question too was, for me, when this all came down, my biggest concern, all I immediately focused on, and you know this because I said to you, Gonzalo, what are we going to do? I can do everything remotely. I can do everything technology-wise, but I can't control a third-party exam and a nurse going to somebody's home or business,
Right.
and taking blood and getting a urine sample. Or doing an EKG and asking questions. So that was my biggest concern through this whole thing, was that I know I could function and do everything, but I couldn't control if carriers were going to require exams, and you couldn't do that last piece of the puzzle.
Right.
So for me, I had already implemented MailChimp probably a year ago. From that perspective, I had not done a lot at all with video conferencing outside of doing some Skype calls with some international clients, or FaceTime calls with people. I had not employed Zoom technology at this point in my practice. But MailChimp, I don't know, again, I don't know, we can come back to, I don't know how much details you want, as far as what I did and the response rate and things of that nature.
We're going to go, yeah, we're going to get to that in just a minute, David. So just what I'm hearing you say is you've embraced Zoom, and you're having Zoom meetings, and we're going to touch a little bit upon that in a minute. And you're embracing MailChimp. For those of you that don't know what MailChimp is, it's a little bit like Constant Contact, and fundamentally it's an email marketing system. So and some of them have are integrated with your CRMs, your client relation management systems. But what about, David, one day you said, I've got a client and he's got, I need him to sign something and he's got to scan it back, and, I don't know how to do that. I think I said, have him download a phone scanner and one of these apps that allows you to sign things on your screen on your phone or on your tablet. Kim, are you using anything along the lines of, some tools that are available via apps? Or I know you've embraced Zoom and you've been doing it for a while. So what else is out there that you're using? And can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Definitely that Scan Me, that I put on my phone. I mean, as we're getting delivery requirements back, that's a really easy way to scan and upload them and send, a copy to our files, but also to the carriers as well. And I would have to say, for the longest time, I've also just been, using the signing delivery requirements on my phone. And so I've been really walking through clients how to do that as well. So most of them, have been able to implement the same things from there.
So in a way, it's a little bit of a learning curve, not only for you guys, both of you, in terms of some of the technology that's out there, but also for your clients. And sometimes you're having to become an app coach or a technology coach for your people.
And I'm using the Cam Scanner and the Sign Now apps that you had turned me on to a while ago, that I'm telling clients to use as well if they need.
Right.
And then I did a video. I had my son use his phone, and I actually demonstrated signing something on my phone and sent it to one of my clients so that they could watch it, and that
That's a-
helped too.
But talk about being scrappy. Well done, Kim. I mean, that's just exactly the way to take advantage of this technology. And look, there's a ton of it out there. You know, so just a couple of quick tools, right? There's phones and tablets. There are apps that you can use that will scan documents. There are a number of apps that will allow you, once you scan them, to upload it into a signature, so that you can sign it just, you know, with a stylus or with your finger on a screen. And then, you know, we already spoke about Zoom, and, you know, we're using GoToMeeting right now. So there's certainly a lot of ways for you all to stay in touch with your clients. Kim, I want to spend a few minutes with you on, you know, you've embraced this technology for some time. I know that you've been pretty active, not only with emails and phone calls, and, you know, both direct to consumers and to centers of influence. How is your messaging different? Are you doing anything? What are you telling them as you're generating these phone calls and these email campaigns for the people? Not only, you know, and spend a minute talking about how you deal with consumers when you're on the phone with them and what you're telling them, but also what you're talking to about with your centers of influence. And is it one-on-one, or are you doing group calls like this one we're having here?
Well, I'm doing some of both. I mean, I'm certainly having a lot of one-on-one calls. I was just on the phone before this with a client, you know, answering questions about the illustration, and really building that, you know, that sense of urgency that things are changing. And, you know, this is something that we've been talking about for a couple of months now, and we really need to go ahead and pull the trigger, you know,
Right.
from there. You know, the messaging really to the advisors that I collaborate with is now more than ever. You know, I've been telling you how important insurance reviews are, and that there's really nothing that you can just set and forget, and that you really need to review a lot of the insurance that your clients have purchased previously, and if you're the trustee especially. And that I think there's a tremendous amount of confusion about, well, you know, the state of New York said I can pay this premium later, but, you know, will that void a no lapse guarantee or something like that?
Right.
And how important it is, you know, to know that there might be some things that are appropriate, but to understand the impact, you know, of what these things mean.
Right. So I know you've had a fair amount of messaging around, and let's kind of dig into this a little bit. David, I'm going to get to you in a second. But, you know, conversions, future product pricing. Should you look at converting today, because maybe pricing is going to change going forward? And maybe instead of, you know, tell the story. You used to begin approaching your clients on conversions 1 year out. What are you doing today?
Right. So now I'm looking at conversions. We actually pulled a list of everything that is eligible conversion over the next 3 years, because I'm very concerned as I look at conversion options for clients last year, and I'm looking at them today. They're more expensive. And I know that if the longer the client waits, the more expensive the conversion option is going to become. And for some of my clients, you know, what I'm looking at is, while they may not be able to convert everything, should we simultaneously be looking at, you know, a life settlement for part of the policy in order to convert the rest and, you know, maintain it for life as well? So I think there are several steps from there. But I mean, I know premiums for sure are not going to be less, and that I feel pretty comfortable with.
Well, I had a phone call interview from a reporter yesterday afternoon, and there was a lot of conversation about, is, you know, COVID-19 or the coronavirus going to change the pricing of products? I said, what's going to change the pricing of products is going to be the low interest rate environment and guarantees and so on. You know, we've already seen some carriers like Prudential get out of the 30-year term market. We've seen some carriers begin to get out of the over age 70 market. So there's a lot of changes coming down. I think to your point, Kim, it's a great message that, you know, if you're thinking of coverage and you're thinking of converting, is it better to begin to look at conversions 2 years out, 3 years out of the expiration of your conversion pros? Because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years, and interest rates are going to be a real challenge. We're going to get back to Kim in just a second. I want to ask you a couple other questions on some other things you're doing. But David, I know you've had very successful, and I think you had one this morning, some Zoom calls with some larger wealth management offices. So you're actually doing some Zoom calls with 6, 8, 10, 12 people in an office that are primarily wealth management folks. Can you talk about that a little bit, and how did you approach them? How did you get them on the phone, and how did you get these calls scheduled?
Sure. Well, first off, these are not cold calls.
Yep.
These are firms that I work very closely with. Gonzalo was kind enough last December to come up for my holiday party, which I put on a dinner at a restaurant in the North End each year for the last 8 years, where I bring in 30 to 35 of my top centers of influence, and that's who I cater to. And no one in that room is somebody that doesn't send me business. So I started with those folks and those firms, and it was amazing. I mean, I just did my first one last Friday. That caused me over the weekend to I sent out 13 emails. I wrote them over the weekend, sent them out Monday morning, and literally within an hour, I texted Gonzalo. I scheduled 5 more Zoom meetings. And basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of giving them I have an agenda set up. I'm giving them a welcome, checking in with everybody. Friday's call, I had 8 people. This morning's call, I had 9 from the firm on the Zoom call, all with their video cameras, all working from home. It's a RIA firm in Boston who they deal with typically clients with a net worth of $10 million or more of liquid assets. I've done a fair amount of work with them, and I kind of gave them what's going on in the insurance marketplace today, what's going on with the accelerated underwriting programs. I talked to them about variable life contracts that I didn't write that could be in jeopardy, or they need to on their review meetings as they're coming up and reviewing with clients who have variable life contracts, that they need to get in force illustrations and review them now with a 20 to 30% market drop. I talked to them about the importance of beneficiary designations, making sure, because in the last 2.5 weeks, besides the 13 to 15 calls I got about whether life insurance would cover the coronavirus, we also got a bunch of calls as to double checking my beneficiary designations. So I talked to them about that, and putting that on their agenda for the next clients. And then again, just that we're here. This is my way to interact with these people, where normally I would have gone to lunch with them or grabbed a coffee with them. And in some ways, it worked out even better because it saves me from 6 lunches with 6 different people at the same firm. I got them all in one spot. And I ended the Zoom call. I've been ending the Zoom call with telling them that if they as a firm want to have particular updates with just themselves, that's great. And what I'm going to try to do within a few weeks, as things continue to change, is send out an email blast to the people who have attended these individual Zoom seminars, but open it up to everybody like this, of my centers of influence, and then just be able to hit everybody at one time with one call.
Yeah. David, I know that we worked together on kind of on 2 email campaigns, and one was much more COI or center of influence driven, but you did also send some emails to some consumers that were either already clients or prospective clients. And I know for a fact that within, 5 or 6 days of you sending out those emails, you dropped a $3 million electronic ticket on us. It wasn't huge, but it was a $5,000 or $6,000 ticket. So, clearly you've got a message that you're sending both to consumers and to COIs. Talk about the consumer side for just a minute and how that case came about.
Sure. Well, and it's funny, just as we're talking, I literally just got an email replying to my COVID-19 email from March 14th. Talking about front of centers of influence saying that their client wants disability insurance. But so there's only been 2 emails so far. One went on March 14th, which was just, hey, hope everybody's doing, no different than the 9 zillion other COVID-19 emails, but just like, we're still here, we're still relevant, we're working remotely, we're here for you, please call me, we're alive, blah, blah, blah. That was the, and we can certainly share the context of that email. What was amazing, and I shared this with you, obviously with MailChimp for Constant Contact, you can see the opening rates on these emails. And so when I do the MailChimp, I have 3 blasts it goes to. I can do my home email addresses, my business email addresses, and my Rolodex, or what I would call my Rolodex or center of influence email addresses. The opening rate on the home emails, which would, again, that's pretty much clients are on that list. I mean, again, there's overlap between COIs and clients, but there's about 1,300 or so emails in that home email blast. I had a 54% opening rate.
Wow.
That's incredible.
On that email, which typically in the past when I've sent stuff like Happy Thanksgiving or this or that or whatever, it would be like in the 15% range, maybe.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, and then the Rolodex and the businesses were in the high 20s. So what that said to me when I said to Gonzalo was, people are at home opening this stuff, and whether they're fully reading it or not, they're opening it and they're recognizing it. And what's really interesting is all the responses I've gotten have been a reply to that email, like not starting a new email, not doing whatever. They're replying. So this is sitting in their inbox. Like this woman is a high-end, huge family office in Boston, and she just replied to my March 14th email, which also says to me, if that wasn't sitting in her inbox, I wonder if somebody else might have gotten that email.
Well, it's been sitting there for 3 weeks. I mean,
That's what I mean.
So that clearly it was important. Yeah, Kim, you're having similar tremendous amount of activity. I mean, I try to get you on the phone during the day, and I've got a call at 10, I've got a call at 11, I've got a call at 1, I've got a call at 3. I mean, you are on the phone or on Zoom all day long. So how are you generating that kind of activity?
It's really the same, as David is, I've not been using Constant Contact or MailChimp, but I've been reaching out to, the CPA firms and the law firms. And, often it's more of a personal message. I know the age of their kids. I'm sort of like, well, my 13-year-olds don't have too much work to do. What are your kids doing? And then setting up, something from there. And same thing. I mean, we're getting responses very quickly to anything that, that we can update them on. They're interested. First of all, they're worried about their own insurance, as, David has mentioned. Second, They are definitely, they're being, I had one estate planning attorney, he told me right now, he's working 14 hours a day. I mean, the demand for people. And so he's like, and everybody is asking, do I need more insurance, at this point in time. So it's been a lot of the similar type of, conversations from there.
Yeah. And Kim, you're also having, quite a bit of, you're a long-term care expert, but for many, many years, and you've done more long-term care in this market than most anybody I know. Long-term care underwriting today is a tele-interview and a yay or nay, right? You're either approved or you're not. So, I mean, how much long-term care are you writing now? You're getting a lot of activity, and we're kind of shifting this conversation over to process now.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of activity in that space. So talk a little bit about that, because that's clearly an opportunity.
And that's really some of the easiest business to do, quite frankly, and it has been over the last couple of years. I mean, most of those, if you're looking at the hybrid products, there is, you're completing an application. The application is nominal. You're using iGo or one of the other electronic. Then the individual is setting up a phone interview. And quite frankly, it's a lot easier to schedule the phone interviews now with people. And, they're giving a medical history. They're doing the cognitive screen. You're getting an approval on average within 5 days. And, there are a lot of people who still have, resources, while many people have certainly seen, a decline in their 401k and the old joke about the 201k and so on from there. There are still a lot of people who are very comfortable in, putting $100,000 or $150,000 or $200,000, for a couple, into these. And it's giving them, a lot of peace of mind also because, these are things that are fully guaranteed and really are not impacted by, anything that's changing, in the insurance market per se.
Right. Well, and David, I want to get back to you on, what you're talking about in your calls with advisors. So you had 9 advisors and from a big RIA practice this morning on a Zoom call like this, and you were telling them, what's going on in the market. What are you telling them, and where are you finding opportunities?
Well, yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Let's be honest. I mean, the complex estate planning cases have been a little bit on hold right now. I don't see that happening. I'm leaning back towards, and listen, I've never been, to my detriment or not, a lack of volume guy. We're still writing, 150, 200 cases a year. Thanks to a lot of the online platforms and the things that you guys are providing at Agency One, relative to making it easy to drop tickets and get things done. And now even more so, potentially without exams and for higher amounts, as you talked about with the companies that you shared at Agency One that allow stacking. Like in that example you shared with that woman that was an existing client of mine who wanted to pick up another $3 million of insurance, doing $2 million with one carrier, $1 million with another carrier, or however we're doing it. I definitely spoke to the advisors. So 2 things. One is on the clients. It's more focusing on, do they have enough insurance, and is now the time to add $1 million or more, even if it's just another term ticket or whatever it may be, just to keep the volume going and keep the lights on and keep some revenue flowing in for everybody, not only us, but for you guys at Agency One too, which is our family. But, looking at, the permanent insurance, talking to them. So I've talked to the advisors about the stacking, the need for term insurance. I've talked to them about what Kim just talked about, the changing of, with interest rates, if some of these estate planning cases we've been working on, do they really need to think about going forward with those now, as products may change and pricing may change. Of course, it's difficult, depending on what kind of losses these people have taken in the last 2 to 3 weeks on their, what does their overall estate look like today than it did a month ago. And listen, I had a really sad call with one of my clients this morning. I have this woman who she's a doctor. She works at a lab. She has permanent insurance with me, term insurance with me, disability insurance. She had term and disability at work. She makes over $500,000 a year. I think it's closer to $600,000 a year. She was told by the CEO 3 days ago that they're done with her, that she's one of the most expensive employees. They're laying her off. She's out on unemployment, no severance. And they think they can get away with that now because of the COVID thing. And the bottom line too is that they look at biopsies that doctors are taking. Doctors aren't doing biopsies right now. That's what she gets sent, the stuff from doctors to review biopsies. And, so you get clients who are just scared. And you got someone where her husband was more the stay-at-home dad and, was working, but, his income was 1/10 of what she was making. And now she's home and they don't know what their future looks like. And she says there's no jobs out there right now.
Yeah. Well, look, we all have an incredible amount of stories. David, I know you had an important client of yours who passed away not too long ago of COVID-19. Look, we're almost at the 30-minute mark, and I want to touch back to the tools that are available, and just very quickly, you guys have both mentioned, IGOs or drop tickets or Vive or whatever other platforms are out there. I also want to make sure everybody on the call knows that, just within the last couple of weeks, Prudential went from $1 million on their accelerated underwriting program to $3 million. John Hancock has announced, opportunities to go up to $5 million without exams. David, you spoke earlier about, the complexity of getting people in front of an examiner. There are a lot of ways to get these cases done today without exams. And I think that that's kind of the focus that you guys can let your your centers of influence, whether it's attorneys or CPAs or wealth management people that are wondering, how do I get 3 million or 5 million? I mean, Lincoln Financial Group, with an executive physical, we can go up to 20 million now. So there are, call Dennis, call Jessica and our underwriting team, because they can help you guys get some of these bigger cases done. Now, what David said earlier is very important. We all have to keep the lights on. So transaction business is the order of the day. I think that the carriers are making it way easier for us to drop those kind of tickets. I know Kim, I know you've had some cases that have gotten, underwritten and done without exams and fluids in, 5-7 days. I mean, what your experience, and we've had a lot of conversation around this. Some of them work really well and others not so well. So Kim, maybe you want to talk just for a second about your experience with drop tickets and accelerated underwriting.
Well, I think you have to go back to the metaphor of, garbage in, garbage out. And you just have to really understand, what your client's medical history is before you attempt to do something like that. And I think that that's really the key, is to, ask all of the questions that you can ask up front. And if you do that, you have a better likelihood of, of being successful from that standpoint. And I think that's the key, is, what you know about the client and making sure you're as thorough as possible.
Well, it's back to field underwriting, right? It's insurance 101. It's what we all learned when we started in the business. David, you kind of raised your hand. I think you wanted to comment on that, and then we'll just conclude here.
It was similar to what Kim was saying, but it was the bottom line is that, some of the people who have approached me based on my emails are existing clients, which I know had some diabetic background, had some cardio issues. So I'm just running that stuff by Jess and Dennis, and just making sure that, I just was going to put a warning out to our fellow Agency One agents out there. You can't just, this isn't, these people also think, oh, accelerated underwriting is free insurance, no exam, like, let's just drop the ticket and get it. It's not going to be that easy, unless they're totally clean. So they just have to be aware that, and there's going to be certain, like I went to Jess the other day with a client that I know who's taken out prior insurance with us, has some diabetic issues, on insulin, and saying, hey, is it Pru and Principal that are still the best carriers for this guy, or anybody else? So just, I was going to say, just caution them to run it by the Agency One team and use some of that back office before just throwing drop tickets, and then everybody gets disappointed.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you both for sharing, 30 minutes of your time and maybe giving some people some ideas on what they should be thinking about. I think at the end of the day, what you guys have done admirably over the last few weeks, and I want to thank you for that as well, is, just staying busy, staying in front of clients, getting the message out. I mean, today more than ever, the awareness of one's own mortality, with 12,000 plus deaths already in the US and the 24-hour news cycle, people are thinking about risk. They're thinking about death, they're thinking about disability, they're thinking about medical care. So there's a ton of opportunity, and what we just have to do is stay busy. And you guys are doing it in remarkable ways through Zoom calls and email campaigns and awareness campaigns. And I know, Kim, you do a lot of social media. So, there are ways to get out in front of clients, even in today's environment. Let us know what we can do to help. I spent a fair amount of time with Kim and David on opportunities that I can help them with. So we're here to help you guys. Kim and David, thank you so much for sharing your time this morning. I want to thank everybody else that was on the call. And then just as a reminder, Good Friday is this Friday. So we had scheduled a call. It will be postponed, so there will be no call on Friday. We've been doing these calls Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon for 30 minutes or so. So anyways, thanks to everybody on the call, and please stay safe and take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and take care of all those you don't even know. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Too.
Bye-bye. All right.
Bye.